This is Chapter 4, Lesson 7, Divide Fractions. So in order to divide by a fraction, I multiply by its multiplicative inverse or reciprocal. So multiplicative inverse and reciprocal mean the same thing. Again, all I'm doing is I'm flipping that fraction. Okay, we talked about reciprocals last lesson. Okay, so in numbers, I'm taking 7/8 divided by 3/4. I'm taking the first number, it stays the same, changing my sign, and flipping my second fraction. Okay, so 7/8 times 4/3. So 7/8 divided by 3/4 becomes 7/8 times 4/3. Okay. In algebra, we have this same concept. So basically, instead of using numbers, we just have letters. So I have A over B divided by C over D. So this equals A over B times D over C, where B, C, and D cannot be 0. Okay, and the reason we say that is because, remember, I cannot divide by 0. Okay. Another cool kind of thing to think about, you can always remember to divide fractions using the model keep, change, flip. You keep the first number, you change the division sign to multiplication, and you flip your second fraction. So you're multiplying by the reciprocal, or you're multiplying by the multiplicative inverse. Okay. If you divide a fraction by a whole number, okay, so when you divide a fraction by a whole number, rewrite the whole number as a fraction, and then divide just like you would if you had two fractions. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples together. Example number 1 says find 1/2 divided by 1/3, write in simplest form. So I have 1/2 divided by 1/3. I keep my first, change my division sign to a multiplication, and I flip my second fraction. 1/3 becomes 3/1. Multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 1 is 2, or 1 1/2. Number 2 says write a story context for 2/3 divided by 1/6. Use a model to solve. So this wants me to write a story. So this is an example of a story, okay? And then I want to use a model to solve. So Mariska has 2/3 pounds of sunflower seeds. Each day she feeds the cardinals in her yard 1/6 pound of seeds. For how many days will she be able to feed the cardinals? So that was her story. Okay, so I'm going to take 2/3 divided by 1/6. So I'm going to take my bar and I'm going to divide it into 6 equal sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I'm going to take 2/3 of those. So here's 1/3, here's 2/3. Okay. So there's 4 sections. So Mariska can feed the cardinals for 4 days. Okay. Number 3 says find 5/7 divided by 10, write in simplest form. So I'm going to write 10 as a fraction as 10/1. I keep my first, change my division to multiplication, flip my second fraction. 5 times 1, and then I can cross simplify. 5 and 10, so I get 1 and 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 7 times 2 is 14. So when I simplify this, I get 1/14. There are a couple of try it problems on page 83. Go ahead, pause the video, try out the try it problems, and then when you're done, we will go over the answers together. Now that you've tried the try it problems, let's go over the answers together. So I have A, 1/4 divided by 3/8. So I'm going to keep my first, change my sign, flip my second, multiply across. But I can also recognize that I can simplify. 4 and 8, so this becomes 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3, so I get 2/3. thirds. Okay. Letter B says 2/3 divided by 3/8. So I keep my first, change my sign, flip my second. Okay. Multiply straight across. I can't simplify anything. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 3 is 9. So I get 16/9. Or 1 and 7/9. So either of those would work. Letter C says 5/6 divided by 1/3. Keep my first, change my sign, flip my second. I can cross simplify. 3 becomes 1, 6 becomes 2. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. So I get 5/2 or 2 1/2. Letter D says write a story context for 3/4 divided by 1/8 and then use a model to solve. So you can come up with whatever story you would like. My story is going to be Julie has 3/4 pounds of bird seed. Each day she feeds the Orioles 1/8 pound of bird seed. For how many days will she be able to feed the Orioles? Again, this doesn't have to be your story. This is my story, so, okay? As long as it makes sense and you are actually going to be dividing them. So then I want to use a model to solve this. So here's my model. Okay. So I want to break my model into 8 parts. Okay. So each of these is 1/8. Okay. And I want 3/4. So in order to figure out how many 1/4 is, we'll start there. I have 8 of these, right? So that means 2 of them is a 1/4. So there's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It will take Julie 6 days to use all the bird seed. Okay. Letter E says 8/9 divided by 4. So I'm going to rewrite this as with 4 as a fraction. So 8/9 divided by 4 over 1. Keep my first, change my sign, flip my second number. I can cross simplify. 8 and 4, so 4 becomes 1, 8 becomes 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 9 times 1 is 9, so I get 2 ninths. Letter F is 4/5 divided by 8. So 4/5 divided by 8 over 1. Keep my first, change my sign, flip my second number. 4 becomes 1, 8 becomes 2. Multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 2 is 10. So 1/10. Letter G, 12/13 divided by 4 over 1. Keep, change, flip. 4 becomes 1, 12 becomes 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 13 times 1 is 13. So I get 3/13. And that is the end of lesson 7.